Garou is one of the best characters in One Punch Man because he exposes the one thing the series keeps clowning on from every angle. Hero society is not the same thing as heroism, and that's really the whole sauce with him. People call Garou a villain, a monster, a menace, the hero hunter, all of that. And yeah, technically, the guy is running around folding heroes like laundry, so I get it. But when you actually look at what Garou believes, what he refuses to do, who he protects, and why Saitama sees through him so easily, the truth becomes way more interesting. Garou is not evil in the traditional sense. He's a traumatized idealist who convinced himself that becoming the ultimate monster was easier than admitting he wanted to be the ultimate hero. That's why he hits so hard as a character. Garou is not some guy who woke up and said, you know what sounds fun? Terrorizing society. No, his whole worldview comes from a childhood wound that never healed. As a kid, he identified more with the monsters than the heroes because the heroes in the stories were always celebrated no matter how unfairly they ganged up on the villain. To Garou, the monster was the underdog. The monster was the one everyone hated automatically. The monster never got sympathy, never got nuance, never got a fair fight. So Garou looks at that and basically says, fine, if the world only respects heroes because they win, then I'll become the monster strong enough to beat every hero. And honestly, this is such a cracked but painfully human mindset. Garou's entire philosophy is built on resentment towards false justice. He hates the idea that people can wear the label hero and instantly be treated as righteous. He sees the hero association as a popularity machine where image, rankings, and public approval matter almost as much as saving people. And this is where One Punch Man gets clever, because Garou is wrong in his actions but not completely wrong in his criticism. The hero system does have shallow, corrupt, and performative elements. Some heroes are noble, some are clout chasers, some are insecure bullies with capes. Garou just takes that real criticism and drives it straight into madness. That's what makes him dangerous. He's not stupid, he's not randomly hateful, he sees a real flaw in the world and then chooses the worst possible solution. Before becoming the hero hunter, Garou was Bang's best disciple and he was skilled enough to defeat the other students before Bang expelled him. He later defeated numerous heroes and criminals, including lower ranked heroes and then higher up ones like Tank Top Master and Metal Bat, though even Garou privately understood that if Metal Bat landed cleanly, the fight could have gone very badly for him. His martial arts are especially dangerous against human opponents because he anticipates movement, targets joints and vital areas, and turns enemy force back against them. That's the first big thing people need to understand. Garou's power is not just he's strong, Garou is a combat reader. He studies you mid-fight. He learns the rhythm of your body, your habits, your weaknesses, your confidence, your fear. Then he adapts. He is basically what happens if a martial arts prodigy had the mindset of a horror movie villain and the survivability of a cockroach from hell. His fighting style starts with Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, Bang's martial art, which is all about redirection, flow, precision, and defense. This is already symbolically perfect. Garou is a character who hates rigid definitions of hero and monster, so of course his base martial art is fluid. He doesn't fight like a wall, he fights like water. He receives force, redirects it, and turns the enemy's aggression into their punishment. That is literally his whole worldview in combat form. You created this violence, so I'll send it back at you. But Garou's genius is that he doesn't stay in one style. As he evolves, he steals, absorbs, copies, combines, and refines. His growth is terrifying because it's reactive. Most characters train, level up, then fight. Garou fights, gets beaten half to death, adapts, evolves, and comes back worse. During his monsterization, his skill keeps escalating, and he eventually combines multiple martial arts into his own style. His growth against fighters like Darkshine, Bomb, and later stronger enemies shows his adaptability increasing over time. This is why Garou is one of the scariest potential characters in anime. He does not just survive fights, he uses them as lessons. Every beating becomes data, every injury becomes feedback, every opponent becomes a teacher who did not consent to teaching. Now, could Garou have used his abilities better? Absolutely, and this is where it gets fun. Garou's biggest flaw is that he's too emotionally attached to proving a point. He wants to defeat heroes publicly, he wants them to feel helpless, he wants society to see the hero hunter and panic. That makes him terrifying, but it also makes him inefficient. If Garou truly wanted to dismantle the hero system, he shouldn't have been hunting heroes one by one like a combat sports villain with childhood trauma. He should have been attacking the system's credibility. A smarter Garou would use psychological warfare way more. Instead of just beating heroes, he could expose cowardice, corruption, arrogance, and incompetence. Imagine Garou defeating a hero but leaving behind evidence that the hero abandons civilians. Imagine him forcing arrogant heroes to admit they care more about rankings than rescue. Imagine him humiliating corrupt association officials instead of mostly targeting fighters. That version of Garou becomes way harder to dismiss as a monster because suddenly the public has to ask, wait, why is the villain making valid points? But Garou doesn't do that because deep down he doesn't actually want reform. He wants validation. That's the sad part. Garou says he wants to become absolute evil, but what he really wants is for someone to admit that the monster deserved to be heard. He wants every bullied, rejected, outcast kid to stop feeling powerless. His dream is twisted, but the emotional root is weirdly protective. In the webcomic side of his characterization, Garou's monster ideal is described as an absolute being feared by all, not a simple mass murderer. And he is disgusted by monsters who don't fit his personal monster policy. He also never kills a human, and Saitama eventually calls out the fact that Garou is soft and not truly serious about being a monster. That right there is the entire character. Garou performs evil, but his limits expose him. He wants to be the final boss, but he keeps saving the kid. He wants to be absolute fear, but he cannot fully abandon his moral line. He wants to destroy heroes, but he is furious because heroes are not heroic enough. Bro is basically auditioning for the role of Demon King while accidentally submitting a hero application. And that's why Saitama destroys him philosophically before he destroys him physically. Saitama is the worst possible opponent for Garou because Saitama does not care about the performance. He is not impressed by the monster act. He's not scared. He's not morally shaken. He just looks at Garou like, dude, you're not a real monster. You're just making your identity everyone else's problem. And that's hilarious, but also devastating. Saitama sees that Garou took the easier role of monster because being a real hero would require him to be vulnerable, responsible, and honest. Garou's monster persona cracks because Saitama refuses to validate it. Philosophically, Garou is an existential crisis with martial arts. He's trying to create himself through opposition. He defines himself by what he hates: fake heroes, unfair systems, mob mentality, popularity-based justice. But defining yourself by hatred is still letting the thing you hate control you. Garou thinks becoming a monster is freedom, but it's actually another cage. He's still living inside the hero-monster binary he claims to reject. That's the deeper tragedy. Garou could have become the kind of hero the world needed, not the shiny public relations hero, not the celebrity hero. A real one, a terrifying, brutal, honest protector of the weak. But because he hates the word hero, he runs from his own nature. He would rather be called a monster than risk being grouped with the hypocrites he despises. Now let's talk design, because Garou's look is low-key one of the best visual progressions in One Punch Man. Early Garou has that lean, sharp Street Fighter look. The white hair, intense eyes, fitted dark clothes, and predatory posture make him feel like a wolf pretending to be a human. He doesn't look like a clean superhero or a grotesque monster at first. He looks like something in between. That matters because Garou's entire identity is transitional. He's not fully a hero, not fully a monster. He's a human trying to sculpt himself into an idea. As his body changes, the design gets more symbolic. The more Garou insists he's a monster, the more monstrous he becomes physically. But it never feels like simple transformation. It feels like ideology growing over his body like armor. The cracked skin, darkened form, horned shapes, and later cosmic imagery all show Garou becoming less like a man and more like the myth he's trying to force himself into. Cosmic Garou is the peak of that symbolism. He becomes universal, terrifying, almost divine. But even then, the power is not truly his in a healthy way. It's borrowed from a higher force. That matters. Garou spends the whole story trying to become absolute through his own hatred and effort, but his most extreme form comes from outside corruption. It's basically the universe saying, you want it to be a symbol of fear? Fine. Here's what that actually costs. And it cost him himself. In terms of smarter ability usage, Garou should have leaned more into hybrid martial arts earlier. His best trait is adaptation, so he should have intentionally exposed himself to different combat archetypes, weapon users, grapplers, speedsters, monsters, psychics, and non-human movement patterns. One of his biggest early issues is that his martial arts are less effective against beast-like or non-humanoid styles, which is why Watchdog Man gives him such a rough time. If Garou had trained against animalistic movement sooner, he could have patched one of his biggest weaknesses way earlier. He also should have used retreats more strategically. Garou is great at surviving, but he often stays in fights too long because his pride refuses to let him leave. A more efficient Garou would treat every encounter like data collection. Fight until he learns the opponent's system, retreat before catastrophic injury, recover, then return with counters. That would make him nearly unbeatable, role in a long campaign. Another upgrade. Garou could have used fear more selectively. He wants to be absolute evil, but fear is more effective when paired with unpredictability. If every hero knows Garou will beat them but not kill them, his threat has a ceiling. But if Garou created uncertainty not by killing innocents but by targeting reputations, bases, resources, or public trust, he would become a social threat, not just a physical one. What if Garou had joined Bang again instead of spiraling? Honestly, he could have become one of the greatest heroes in the world. Not because he would suddenly become nice, but because he would understand villains better than most heroes ever could. Garou has empathy for the rejected. He understands resentment, humiliation, and social failure. If he matured, he could become the hero who reaches people before they become monsters. What if Garou killed humans? Then the character breaks. Seriously, that line is what keeps him interesting. The second Garou becomes an actual murderer of innocent people, he stops being a tragic anti-villain and becomes what he pretends to be. His refusal to cross that line is the proof that his heart is still fighting his ideology. What if Garou beats Saitama? He still loses because Garou's problem is not that nobody recognizes his strength. His problem is that strength cannot answer his actual wound. Beating Saitama would not heal the child who felt bad for the monster. It would just leave Garou alone at the top of the world, still waiting for someone to tell him his pain made sense. That's why Garou works so well. He's not just a villain who wants power, he's a guy who saw hypocrisy and heroism and becomes so obsessed with exposing it that he forgets to build something better. He wanted to save the outcast but chose fear as his language. He wanted justice but dressed it up as evil. He wanted to be understood but made himself impossible to approach. Garou is not scary because he's a monster. He's scary because he is what happens when a heroic instinct gets poisoned by resentment. And that's why his character is so good, because deep down, Garou was never trying to destroy heroes because he hated heroism. He was trying to punish the world for making heroism feel fake. But the saddest part, Garou had the heart of a hero the entire time. He just hated himself too much to call it that. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any anime characters you'd like me to analyze, drop them down in the comments below. You already know. JV out!